Welcome back to our second portion of the class. I'll be your second instructor. But before we start, let's give our first teacher a round of applause. She did a beautiful job, didn't she? Just for review, I just wanted to ask from you, the audience, just tell me one thing you learned from our first lesson. Anybody? The character versus personality.
That there is a difference.
That there's a difference.
Character and personality.
Yes, that there is a difference between character and personality. Anyone else? Yes?
I learned that I should really want to learn more about someone's character and base my friendships and relationships on that versus their personality.
Yes, she said she should want to base her friendships on somebody's character versus their personality, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, yes?
It helps us know the difference between someone's character and their personality.
Yes, it helped us learn the difference between someone's character and their personality. I see a hand. I'm coming to you in just a second, yes?
Someone's personality you could see right away.
Yes, someone's personality you can see right away.
It's nice to have a clear way to tell the difference, because some things that I would have thought were character are actually personality, and some things I would have said were personality are actually character.
That's true. She said it's nice that she saw a clear way, because some of the character traits she thought were personality traits and vice versa. So it is important that we learn the difference, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about in this next session. We're going to talk about why it's important to know the difference between character versus personality. So I will be teaching from the Peaceful Solution Building Moral Excellence Character Unit, and this is the teacher manual. And I'll be teaching from Lesson Plan 1, and it's called Character, My Foundation. And I will be using procedures 1, 3, 6, and 9 to 12. Okay? So, now that we know the difference between character and personality, I'm going to ask you, why is it important? Why is it important that we learn about character? Can anyone tell me why it's important that we learn about character? Yes.
We may like someone's personality, but then find out that they're not a very nice person.
That's right. She said we may like someone's personality and then find out that they're not a very nice person.
I think that we all have an internal desire to do the right thing. And I think that the character definitions help us to easily do the right thing.
That's true. The positive character traits help us learn to do the right thing. Yes, that was great. Yes.
There's a lot of areas in our life where we have to make choices about people, whether we're hiring someone or watching who our children are choosing as friends, where it's vital that you know the person's character rather than their personality, because personality isn't going to help in those situations.
Yes. I like the word she used. She used the word vital. She said it's vital that we learn a person's character versus their personality, because our life could depend on it in some cases. It really is that important that we know that difference. Okay, so one of the things is that, when we learn the importance of character, this class will teach us to recognize the difference between right and wrong behavior. So when we learn about positive character traits and negative character traits, we'll automatically know the difference between right and wrong behavior. Also, it'll improve our decision-making skills. I remember that was one of the things, decisive. Our first teacher packed decisiveness in the suitcase, because you don't want to go on a road trip and you don't know where you're going. One person might want to go to Florida, one might want to go to California. They're on two other opposite ends of the map. So let's just say one's driving a car and the other one's trying to turn the steering wheel. It's going to cause confusion. And she also packed self-control, too. Self-control. Imagine you were going on a road trip and you didn't have self-control. Road rage. There's a lot of people out there with road rage. So it's really important that we learn these character traits. It helps us improve our decision-making skills. And the third one is, it will improve the quality of our lives by becoming better people and motivating others to do the same. So we're going to talk about that, because it's important. Because we all share the same planet. We all want to be better, don't we? We don't want to be stuck here with somebody that, one thing we're going to learn in this lesson is that all of us have a mixture of traits. Some are positive, some are negative. But with this Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, it teaches you to delete the negative and replace it with the positive, okay? All right, so in order to understand how to develop positive character, we need to learn about personality, because personality and character can easily be confused. And it's like we said before, sometimes our life can depend on, not just gauging someone based on their personality alone. we'll get a little bit more into that. So I have a first reader. If you can stand up and read what's on your card.
Positive traits are to your character what a foundation is to a house.
Let's give her a hand. Did everyone at the back hear that? She said positive traits are to a character
As a foundation is to a house.
Yes, as a foundation is to a house. So think about that as we're going through the class, okay? Because one thing we know is that if anybody in here wants to build a house, you don't want to build it on sand, right? You want to build it on a firm foundation, rock, stone, something solid, okay? So that's how it is with our character. We want to make sure that our character is positive. And if our character is positive, that's that firm foundation. Okay? So, there's 3 things that shape our character and personality. And I've got this chart over here. The first one's heredity, the second one's value, and the third one is environment. So can somebody tell me, how does heredity help shape our character or our personality? How does heredity help shape our character or personality? Yes?
Well, my mom instilled in me the like to cook. And from what the first teacher was saying, that's personality.
Yes, that is personality. Yeah, that's heredity. It's also a value, too. It ties in with both of them. Yes, her mother instilled in her the like to cook. Okay? Yes.
Heredity goes in with how you're raised, what kind of character traits your parents have when they raise you, which actually goes kind of hand in hand with the environment, because if you're surrounded by that environment, then it's going to be not easy.
Yes, she was talking about how you're raised. A lot of the way you're raised comes from your parents, and also that includes the environment. The environment that we're in contributes to how our character or personality is formed. Yes?
Well, I was thinking about my family, and my mother has like 7 sisters. They're all Italian, and if a stranger were to walk in the kitchen at any given time, they might think we're all mad. But we're all just like excitable talkers, and it's kind of a high energy, insane situation if you're not used to us.
If you're not used to it. That's pretty funny, but it's true, because some of our behavioral traits we do inherit from our parents. Did I see a hand over here?
It plays a role in our society today, because children, we all are a product of what we've been taught, and the decisions we make, it affects how we interact within society.
Yes, she said the decisions we make affects how we interact with society, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. The decisions we make, the choices that we make on a daily basis. One thing it says here, it talks about genetics, because genetics are a part of heredity. And genetics are also responsible for the behavioral similarities. And it's like this lady right here said, she comes from a house full of Italians. They like to talk, and they're in the kitchen. But, with genetics, some people can look at you and notice that maybe you act just like your mother, or maybe there's an aunt that's very similar to you. So that's one thing that helps shape both our character and our personality, and also our physical appearance. But there's a difference, though. With the physical appearance, like, for example, I look like a mixture of everyone in my family, my mom, my dad, and all my siblings. Not all of them look alike, but I'm a blend of all of them. So if you're wondering what they look like, just look at me. But we can't change our physical traits, but we can change our character traits. So if they're negative, don't get disheartened. They can be changed, and they can be changed through learning the peaceful solution, and also on the choices that we make on a daily basis, whether we're going to make a positive choice or a negative one. Okay, so both positive and negative behavioral traits can be inherited, like humor or aggression. Okay, so unlike physical traits, behavioral traits can be altered. Inheriting negative quality traits, like aggression, for instance, does not mean you have to accept that as a permanent part of your character. Because we all know there's something inside us that we know we want to change for the better, right? If there's a negative character trait that you know of, and you don't have to share it if you don't want to, but just think about what positive character trait you can replace that with, because it can be done. I might not be able to change the shape of my nose, but I can change the way I interact with somebody. Okay? Inherited behavioral traits such as aggression can be altered by choices, the environment, and influences that are present in an individual's life. Okay, so let's move on to the second one, value. How does what we value? Well, first off, just tell me some of the things that you all value. What are some of the things that you value? It could be anything. It could be a house, a car. Your life? That's a great one. Yes, your life. I wasn't even thinking that, but that should be one of the most important things that we value. Yes, our life.
My family.
Your family? Yes.
I value my health and my well-being.
Her health and her well-being, yes. And it's interesting, some of these things that you're saying, like health and well-being, life, all of that ties into, goals, which is kind of another topic, but if we set out on a quest to change ourselves for the better and take on positive character traits, we're less likely to take risk-taking behaviors, which would put our life or our health at risk. Okay? So, value. How does what we value shape our character, or the values that our parents instilled in us? How does that shape our character or our personality?
If we're taught to value life, we're not going to want to end someone else's life or an animal's life or whatever. So that actually goes back to what I said before about environment. If you're taught to value life, if you're taught to value someone else's opinion, then you're not going to want to make bad decisions.
Yes, if you're taught to value life, you're less likely to take someone else's life. Did I see another hand?
You're going to spend time on the things that you value. So if you want a big house, you're going to work for money to buy a big house. If you value your health or family, you're going to be spending time with your family, looking for things you can do together as a family. And you're going to set your goals in your everyday life by the things that you do value.
Yes, values. It helps us in goal setting, and we spend time on some of those things we value. Yes?
It's like having a value for a child that you want to have a great education. You're going to make sure that you put aside everything that's needed for that child to have the education they need, and you're also going to be willing to help to tutor them up to that point so that they can succeed in the area they want to succeed in.
Yes, she talked about having a child, and you have certain expectations for that child. You put value in that child. You're going to take time out and tutor them so that they can meet your expectations, yes?
Your values are going to influence your choices. So if you value having fun or going to parties more than you value building your character, then that's where you're going to put your time and energy. So what your personal outcome, what you become, is a reflection of your values.
I liked the way she said that. She said what you value, affects what you become. Like if you value having fun and hanging out with your friends and maybe not so much your education, your outcome is dependent on the choices you make. That was very, very nicely said. Okay, so what you value comes from several sources. Your first and foremost influential teachers were your parents. Okay, so a lot of us, or our guardians, whoever we grow up with, they instilled their values in us. They've been sharing their values with you from the moment you were born. The things your parents considered important are what you may have been taught to value. Babysitters, teachers, friends, and the media. Notice it says media here too, because media can shape our values. They've also played a key role in influencing our lives. Okay, so let's move on to environment. How can our environment, I know we touched on that a little bit, but how can our environment help shape our character or our personality?
Peer pressure in school.
Yes.
That the school environment, if our friends are, want to experiment with drugs, we may be pressured into making a wrong decision like that.
Yes, peer pressure. We might make negative choices from that.
Yes, I was going to say you can, if you had a parent that had an addiction, that could rub off on the child. So that would be a way of.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. She said if you had a parent that had an addiction, that might influence you. That environment, being in a drug environment, that might have an effect on the outcome of your life. Anyone else?
And the state that we're in right now in a drought, that particular thing is our environment, and the food supply is going down. And because of that, it also causes for people to be going hungry. And there's many things rising up in the world because of the hunger.
Because of the hunger? Like, what do you mean? Like, maybe somebody might be forced to maybe steal because of the environment?
Yes.
Because of the drought that we're in, there's no food? Oh, yes, that's true. It's true. There are some situations like that.
When growing up as a child in an environment where it was country living and there was not TV and there was a lot of work to do, it helps a person to be very responsible.
Yes, it helps in the country life, very responsible because, if you have to haul water,
yes.
You're going to need to go to the river, get water if you want to bathe or drink even, right?
To add to what the young lady on the front was saying, in our neighborhood crime watch meetings, they've even brought that up lately, that as the economy gets worse and worse and worse, desperate people do more desperate things, and car thefts and all kinds of things, so that all of these young people that are making negative decisions and building negative character out of desperation, they seem to be growing because of their environment.
Because of the environment, yes. Those were all great answers. We can see how heredity, value, and environment can play a great role in shaping our character and personality. And on page 17, it talks about culture. Sometimes our culture, that's a part of our environment. That helps shape who we are, what the community we're from. Also our customs and traditions and the community, what's going on in the neighborhood. It's like she said, if you're in a community and let's say you're not really educated, you might get caught up in that lifestyle of drugs and crime just because of your environment. Okay, but the peaceful solution, it can help all of that. Okay? So, a person's character develops one choice at a time. That's one thing I want to stick in your mind. Our character develops one choice at a time. Our choices determine our character. People make both positive and negative choices, so their character is a combination of both. But anyone can take steps to eliminate negative traits from his or her character. And what I have here, I have some building blocks here. Some building blocks of a positive character or even negative. Okay, so humility. That's a positive character trait. I'm going to start laying the foundation of my house here. How can humility help build a positive character? How can having humility help that? Yes?
A humble person isn't going to start an argument. They're not going to take a selfish stance on things. They'll be more willing to let something go than fight about it.
Yes, a humble person is more willing to let something go than to fight on it, yes.
I think it's going to be, you're going to be hard-pressed to even begin the work that you need to do on yourself without that first ounce of humility.
It's true. I like that she said that, because reading the peaceful solution actually takes a lot of humility. Because as you're reading it, it's going to point out your negative traits. And if you're not humble enough to admit it, it's going to be very difficult to get over it. We have to admit we have the problem. The next one's respect. How can having respect help build a positive character?
Well, if you respect yourself, you're going to take care of yourself, and taking care of yourself will enable you to have a healthy mindset, and you can use that healthy mindset to make great decisions.
Yes, taking care of yourself, having a healthy mindset to make great decisions. Anyone else? Respect?
You're going to be concerned about others, and you're going to treat them in a positive way, not a negative way.
Yes, you're going to be concerned about others. You're going to treat them in a positive way and not a negative way. Yes.
I just wanted to add to the respect thing. A lot of our positive character traits take a while to notice, but when you're interacting with people, respect is one that stands out pretty clearly. I mean, it may take a while for me to figure out that you're honest, but upon first meeting, you might get a guess of whether or not I am respectful.
It's true.
So it's an important one.
That is an important one. That is. But keep in mind, everybody has a bad day. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but everybody has a bad day. So you take time to get to know the person, because they could also be having a bad day too. Okay. So but this is why we're learning the peaceful solution, so we'll have less bad days. Okay. So our next one is honesty. How can having honesty build our character? We're going to talk a little bit about honesty later too. Yes.
If you're honest, people are going to trust you.
Yes, people are going to trust us if we're honest. I see a hand at the back.
Honesty is important. No one wants to be around somebody that's going to steal from them.
Exactly. No one wants to be around somebody that's going to steal from them.
I think being honest with yourself and seeing the areas where you still need to grow and working on those. I mean, because you could delude yourself, but if you're honest and you're honest with yourself, then you're going to find those areas and work on those and improve.
Yes, that's true. That goes hand in hand with humility, the honesty. Okay, compassion. Compassion. We're starting a nice little foundation up here, aren't we? Like my brick wall. How does having compassion help to build our positive character?
compassionate person is going to put someone else's need before their own.
Yes, the compassionate person is going to put someone else's need in front of their own. Anyone else? There's no compassion in here? No. How can compassion help build our positive character? I see a hand over here.
Compassion is important for building your character in ways that you interact with others. Because some character traits are just yourself and your own choices for yourself. And some are your choices for others. And compassion is a real big one for making those decisions where others are involved.
Yes, it was nicely put. It helps us in our interaction with others. Okay, our last positive trait, patience. Patience. How can having patience help build our positive character trait? I see a hand at the back.
Like the teacher before you said, you have to have patience with yourself, knowing that you're not going to have a 100% positive moral character tomorrow. You have to be patient with yourself and other people that are trying and striving just like you are to achieve a moral character.
Yes, we need to have patience with others because, we're all striving to achieve that moral character, so we got to be patient as we develop. Yes?
Patience is also necessary when you're making decisions so you don't make impulsive decisions.
Yes.
So you have to take your time and think things through before you make a choice.
Yes, we don't want to make impulsive decisions. Did I see your hand?
Yeah, I was thinking about the fact that all of this would be really silly if it was all for us only. If I read this book and I applied all these principles to my life, but I didn't have the patience to teach it to someone else or the compassion to teach it to someone else, well, that's just silly. I mean, I don't want to be the only one walking around with positive moral character.
That's true. That's funny. Can I get my... Wait, before I get my reader number 2, I got one last brick, but it's blank. I want one of you to tell me another positive character trait that can help build our character.
Loyalty.
Loyalty? Yes, that's a great one. That's actually one that's on here. But don't peek. Don't peek. Anyone else?
I was going to say educated.
Educated, yes.
Steadfast.
Steadfast. That's on the board, too. Did you peek? No.
No.
Responsibility. Empathy, yes. Being able to put yourself in another person's shoes. Those are all some things that will help build our positive character. So all of that is in this one brick, and we'll put it right here at the top. But notice, we can also build negative traits. We can also build our character with negative traits like aggression and selfishness. We know that if we have those in our character, a lot of times that doesn't, So can I get my reader number 2?
The qualities that determine your character are based upon the choices you make. It's up to you to recognize that these choices will, over time, establish a pattern of behavior.
Yes. Our character is based on our choices, and over time, that will establish a character of behavior. So I'm going to read a little bit on page 28 and 29. It talks about the important thing to remember is that each choice you make concerning how you treat yourself, others, and the environment determines the traits you'll develop, okay? So think about that. It's these choices we make on a daily basis, whether they're positive or negative. Although character traits can be divided into positive or negative, most people's character consists of a combination of both. The average person's character is not exclusively positive or negative. For example, someone might be honest, but may have a bad temper, or they can be generous but frequently late for school. So we can see that, it can hold us back in life if we choose to stick to the negative. And also, over time, choices, whether negative or positive, will develop. Over time, choices, whether negative or positive, will develop specific character traits. By recognizing these choices, especially the way you interact with others, it can lead to specific behavior, and you'll be better able to develop a positive moral character. Okay? So the key here is looking beyond personality. Okay? We're running out of time, and I wanted to talk about something, because I just wanted to ask the class, why is it important that when we're seeking a friendship, why is it important that we look for someone's character versus their personality? Like, what could be some of the drawbacks of just seeking a friendship based on personality alone?
this is something that I've discussed with my son, who's 12, time and time again. And, obviously for a 12-year-old, what I've tried to instill in him, that if he chooses his friends based on personality, I inevitably might get that phone call one day that he was at the mall with some kid who took something, or who knows what, when you can't predict the character of somebody that you've made a friend based on personality. And so I try to encourage him to make friends based on character, and he gets it. He understands that when he's playing a game with another kid and they get mad every time he wins, he can identify that as a negative personality trait and character trait.
It's true, and it can be easy. It can be easy to gravitate towards somebody that they might have a likable personality. But that's where I wanted to use my example where our life could depend on it, because there was this famous serial killer back in the 70s. Hope I'm not scaring anyone, but actually the serial killer, he had a very nice personality, and they described him as nice looking. But what he did was he used his appealing personality to lure people in, but in the end, his true character was revealed because he killed them. So, I know that's an extreme case. But even with some of the friends we choose, it's so easy to get drawn in by a personality. But we really should, it takes some time to look at the character and decide whether we want to stay friends with this person, because it could affect our futures. Because if we're with a bad group of friends and they're doing something maybe they're not supposed to, the rest of your life can get affected by just the activities that your friends are doing, and you could be just caught by guilt of association. You just occurred to be at the scene of a crime. Okay, so can anyone else tell me why?
It's like you were talking about before, where somebody is generous but they're constantly late for school. If you need somebody to be dependable, like be on time for a job every day, and then they're like 10 minutes late one day, 20 minutes late the next day, how can you depend on them when you really need them?
That's right. We can't depend on somebody. We need to look for people who are dependable. That's a great quality to look for in a friendship. Yes?
What you were saying about the serial killer, when they interview the neighbors, they always say, well, he was such a nice guy.
Yes, he was such a nice guy, such a pleasant personality, right? Yes.
I think also when you surround yourself with people that are negative, have negative personality and character traits, or one of the two, especially the character traits, inevitably your life is not going to be as productive.
That's
You're going to be bogged down by their negativity all the time.
Yes, it's true. And negativity can affect people quickly. Yes?
It's better to look at someone's character first before you look at their personality, because their character could be like a bad influence, and then you get to know their personality first, and then you never knew that they're a bad influence towards you, and then you get yourself into trouble.
That's true. You can get yourself into trouble hanging out with somebody that has a negative character. You see, I'm going to have to hold the questions. I've got 1 minute left, but I just wanted to say that you can gain insight into someone's character by observing the way he or she responds when faced with a moral choice. Okay, that's one way you can gauge it. Consistency in positive choices and behavior plays an important role in determining character, and the important thing to remember is to be cautious and on the alert about behavior that could indicate negative qualities. Okay, so I just wanted to thank you all for coming out, and I wanted to encourage you all, when seeking friendships, always remember to take your time with the person. Look for the positive character traits. Don't just get stuck by the dazzle of a great personality, because it could affect your future. And always, aim to build a positive character. And we can do that by practicing the peaceful solution, gaining these positive character traits, and eliminating the negative with the positive. So thank you for coming out.